So my name is Vladimir. I'm a successful senior engineering manager here at Bolt, leading billing teams. In the previous company, I used to lead an entire department of 50 engineers. Now my teams are like roughly 30 people. And if you don't appreciate this talk, I will be demoted to a successful engineering manager of 1. So please give me a round of applause. Thank you, thank you. I also write a lot about software development, system design, and all that stuff at my personal website, but I will give this link at the end. Sorry. Has anybody heard about such tiny company as OpenAI? Yeah, they are great. They're on fire, right? So what they delivered during the last year is amazing. Like custom GPTs, then multimodal chat, then improvements to DALL-E, like amazing. These folks are really fast on feature delivery, on research, on firing the CEO and getting him back. First time in the history, boomerang CEO. So I bet they will reach AGI before you can say layoffs. They're on the mission, right? They want to create a safe AGI. And here at Bolt, we're on the mission too. We want to make cities for people and not for cars. But advancing any mission actually requires money, right? This is just a fuel for the business. So when we talk about measurements, we need to talk first of all about business perspectives. It is important to measure things because if you don't measure, you cannot control what's not measured, right? So you cannot improve if you don't know, like, if any KPIs are improving. So you need to measure something. And like if you don't measure, then you don't have a base for decisions. And this is like common thinking in the managers things, right? And speaking about the decisions, where to invest among several options, right? Like if you have several projects and the resources are limited, where you put your money at? Or like if you have a team and you know this is a core team and you want more of output from this team, like how you do performance improvements, right? How to get more. Or like if you see the engineers, how you will help them to grow, because like almost everybody wants to grow. So business perspective is really important because again, we need to figure out what are the investment opportunities, or like we need to find out if we're losing money, and if we do, where. So first of all, from the business perspective, we want to see some business indicators. And here you can see like a table. This is actual table from our next year planning, without numbers, of course, because I know somebody's from Uber here, Spain. So not showing the numbers, but you can see that like we're trying to understand what was like our impact per headcount in 2022, like estimated per 2023, what we actually achieved, like what we're planning for the next year, and the comparison between actual and estimated, and this is broken down into teams, right? Like platform, rights, market, commerce, and so on. So we're trying to understand from a business perspective where to put the money to get more results, to get more impact. By the way, I have a YouTube channel, and like from the engineering perspective, like these business-driven decisions, there's a talk there. There's a link like YouTube Architecture Weekly. But most of us here are engineering managers, right? Give me your hands. Okay, great, a lot of those. So you're interested, first of all, not in high-level business decisions, but rather in engineering manager perspective. This is exactly what I got for you. So from the engineering manager perspective, you need to understand what your team is doing. And if you think of it, like how all the software teams are doing, they actually bring some value through the software, right? And this value, we can represent it as a stream. So first of all, you have some product ideas, then you convert it to the user stories, then you write some code, you write some tests, you deploy it to production, then you get it on the production, users seeing those. Like, so this is a sequence of steps that you're taking as a team to bring some value for the users, and you do it iteratively, right? So from week to week, from month to month, from quarter to quarter, from year to year. So value stream, this is, by the way, a coin term. So this is a continuously bringing value to the users. And any process, like any manufacturing process, can be represented by those steps. Like if you're doing a car, or you're producing software, or you're doing t-shirts, there's some steps. And this is like value stream. But for our analogy, imagine you're going for a hike. Who was in a hike at least once? Okay, great. A lot of expertise here. So can you please tell me, like if you're going for a hike and you're reaching for a goal, you want to climb on a mountain, or you want to reach a lake, or you want to reach a sauna with beers. So what is like the biggest constraint for you as a team? Like what defines how fast you will get there? Exactly, the slowest one. So you cannot reach the sauna until everybody reaches it, right? Well, you can, but that's not the goal. So, and this like pretty obvious observation actually is a foundation for a much bigger thing. And this bigger thing is called theory of constraints. And this is a professor, Eliyahu Goldratt. He wrote a bunch of books on the topic, like The Goal or Critical Chain, if anybody read those. And this theory, and it's not like just theoretical thing, right? Like belonging to the books, but that's actually proved by practice by tons of companies across the globe. So it states that every complex system has multiple linked activities. Remember the value stream. And only one of those is a constraint at any given point of time. So if you have like several problems, it doesn't make sense to solve all of them. You need to understand what the actual constraint for your team is and optimize for those. And then the next item becomes the constraint, and so on and so on. So this is a process of continuous improvement. So this theory of constraints was a foundation for a bigger thing, which is called lean manufacturing. Has anybody seen a Toyota car? Obviously. And Toyota, one of the biggest car manufacturers in the world, and they actually adopted this like lean manufacturing thing. And this is a set of principles, right? There's a long list, but for us, the most relevant are the following. So optimize the whole. So you need to optimize the whole output of your team, not the individual improvements, okay? So you need to deliver fast because you want fast feedback. You want to have build quality in, because if you don't, then you have a lot of drawbacks. And fixing the bugs is annoying and wasteful, actually. And you want to have respect for people, because without it, you cannot do any sophisticated engineering. And this is what is leading us here at Bolt. Okay, but the talk is like measuring performance, right? Let's get back to that. When we're talking about like measuring performance and software development team output, or what they're doing like in the first place, you can describe the feature life cycle like the following. This is like, by the way, from the newsletter of Pragmatic Engineer, but this is a very useful example for me. So first of all, you see some customer pain. Like, for example, you wanted this customer delight that was covered in the first talk, right? Then you brainstorm how to solve it, like our hackathons. Then you make a plan, write some code, ship it. Then what you do, you write the design docs, so everybody knows how that was built. Then you observe the feature in production, you see the change in the user behavior, step 3, and then you see some value generated, like decreased churn of drivers, for example. This is value. And the question is like, what do you measure here, right? There are like 4 stages, different things. What do you measure? Some candidates. So the first naive thing that like managers that are very far away from software development would come up with is, let's calculate lines of codes. If not, maybe we can calculate commits, or at least pull requests, right? Sounds like reasonable. If the person commits a lot, then probably they're very productive. Another candidate is like number of Jira tasks. Let's calculate those. This will be insightful, I guarantee. Another measurement is like number of docs written, right? We saw it on the diagram. It's like part of the developer's job. Or, I have a better idea. Let's calculate number of Slack messages. Why not? They need to talk to each other, right? And to product managers, they need to figure out what to build. Let's calculate those. But wait, we have calls. let's calculate time that person is spending on Zoom talk. This should be really low for developers, but huge for managers, right? So we know who is doing their work. This is all crappy things, okay? So we don't measure those at all at Bolt. Do you know why?
Not representing the whole involved.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't represent the whole. But also, there's a thing called Goodhart's law. And this law states that when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. Whatever you measure, people are smart. They know what you're measuring, and if their bonus is depending on a particular KPI, you will have very high amount of commits in your GitHub. I can write a script in 15 minutes that would commit like every minute. I would be having like the biggest bonus ever. So yeah, people are smart. They will gamify your metric like for sure. And that will screw the value stream. You will obviously not get what you expect from the team. You will get the number of commits, you will get a lot of docs written, you will get a lot of time spent on Zoom meetings, but not the value that you want to bring to the users. And I have a good example. So Wells Fargo is a bank. That's a huge bank. And in 2016, they got fined for like almost $200 million. Does anybody know why? Fake accounts. Yeah. So their managers, they got a goal, a measurement, right? From big M. The measurement was like, we want to have as big of a credit portfolio as we can. And the managers, which were not able to do that naturally, they started to fake it. So they would create some fake accounts, fake email addresses, and ask for the credit cards on behalf of their customers. And that's obviously bad. The overall profit of the group was like $90 billion in 2016. 200 million is like 0.2% of the overall profit of the group. So the CEO was like, fine. Oh, here, keep the change. But nevertheless, that was a bad example, right? So don't do this. Don't like put an arbitrary metric just for the sake of measuring anything. That's a bad idea. Get back to the picture. So if we get back to those 4 steps, then we will see that actually thing that impacts like the user value are the things that belong to outcomes, right? And to impact. And there are good metrics for those. And those metrics were presented by this book, Accelerate. I highly recommend to read it. And this is a result of a research. So the special group, they conducted a research of 31,000 respondents. And they concluded that there's a correlation between the particular measures and the company's success, okay? Measured in the market share or revenue, so like business KPIs, okay? So they found out, so if you have high deployment frequency, if you have small change lead time, if you have small change failure rate, and small time to restore the service, after the deployment, of course, or a failure, then this is somehow correlates to your market share. So basically, the players that were having those metrics in place, they would lead in a market. They will earn the most money, they will dominate the market, and so on and so on. So basically, like what business wants, okay? So that's great. This is some indication of what you would better measure rather than, you know, number of Slack messages. There's actually a confirmation. So there's some correlation in other research conducted recently by Microsoft. So they figured out that if you can support a good flow state for your developers, which will not be interrupted by failure of deployments or like failure in services, then you will have higher output, higher impact, and so on. So this is somehow like supported by other research as well. We actually do measure those things in Bolt. For example, this is a deployment frequency for billing teams, and you can see like that at peak for like 8th of November, we had like 16 deployments on that date. Basically, like every second developer deployed something to production on that date. So that's good. We're going with a good pace. However, like any research can have its flaws. And DevOps research has them too. So first of all, this is not an independent research since 2020, right? They got Google Cloud as their sponsor. And we know that if you get a sponsorship for research, you can trust it that much. Like just remember the tobacco research, that it doesn't hurt your health. Sure. So yeah, second thing is that audience of the research is big, but it's random. So we're not picking like countries or industries or whatever. So it was like purely random, and like it prevents you from doing the proper conclusions. Also, like I said, correlations, and I did that on purpose because when you have a correlation, it doesn't mean the causation. Okay, you can remember the market share of Internet Explorer correlating with the market share of real-time pirates. They're obviously not caused by each other. So maybe it's not like the good metrics lead to a market share, but like because you have a market share, then you have a lot of money and you can invest in those metrics and monitoring of those metrics. Nobody knows. And the last, like those metrics are just signals, okay? So you can see that something is wrong and you can improve on it, but it doesn't like make a lot of conclusions. Okay, there's another set of metrics called space metrics. And this is about like developer satisfaction, like how they're good at well-being, or like how they're collaborating, or the activity or performance, whatever. So some other things, there's no scientific research on those either, but yeah, just letting you know. What we actually do is we're trying to measure the developer happiness, okay? I will explain a little bit later why, but we do believe that actually, if you have a team that is interested in their work, like they're really interested in the challenges that they're brought to, if they believe in the mission, like why they're doing this in the first place, if they feel accomplished, like they achieved something, if they feel safe and belonged, like they're happy to come to a workplace or work in their team, if their effort is recognized, like everybody see that you do that work, saying thank you, like I appreciate your effort. And if they don't have any obstacles from the environment point of view, like a cozy office, a good MacBook, a good display, a mouse, working Wi-Fi, for God's sake, then probably they will have a lot of impact. How do we measure those? Like we have a tool, it is called Beacon, and it provides a way to survey your employees for various metrics. For example, there's a eNPS score. So I know there's some critique on the NPS score itself, but you need to differentiate the NPS and employee NPS. Those are different things because they have different audience, okay? And like eNPS directly correlates again with how the company is doing, okay? So we rely on that. So this tool is allowing us to understand like how we're doing. For example, we have an eNPS score for billing teams as 55. So maximum is 100 and minimum is like minus 100. Like everybody hates being at your workplace, like Tesla. I'm not joking, by the way. They have 95 of eNPS, but everybody is saying like they hate their job, like it's awful place, and everybody is just faking eNPS because it's not anonymous, so they can get fired for a low score. Ours is anonymous. Like it's anonymous to the managers, okay? So the tool itself collects the information about the cohort you belong to, like by gender or by years spent in the company and so on, but nobody sees like who wrote what or who posted a particular mark. But still, by the way, you can see that for billing, the eNPS score is lowering for the last half a year. The reason for that is that like we have some problems with the nature of work because we do a lot of compliance things, and compliance thing is actually boring, but still we need to do that. So we're doing it. Nobody is happy about that, but we're almost done. So we're switching to other things. There are some other internal things, but like I'm sharing this not to, you know, saying like, hey, we have a wonderful place here. Like it's wonderful, but with its own challenges. Also, this tool can help us to understand like what are the biggest drivers, like up and down for particular parameters. For example, for accomplishments, we can see that it's going down. And like, again, to this nature of work, like you're doing migrations after migration after migration, that is not very like feeling accomplished, but we will fix that later. Okay, why we're measuring those things in the first place? And here's a quiz time. You have a challenge or a task. So you see those things. So you have a table, you have a bag of pins, you have a matchbox and a candle. The task is to attach the candle to the wall and light it up in a way that the wax is not dropping on the table. I'll give you 10 seconds to think about like how it can be solved. But yeah, like actually the solution looks like this. So you get a pin to the wall, lighten up the candle, put it there. So problem solved. Why I'm telling you about this is there was an experiment, like this particular task was presented to several groups, and one group was not motivated at all. They're saying like, hey, we're conducting the research, please solve it as fast as possible. And another group was promised some monetary compensation, like $5, and the maximum, like if you're the fastest, you will receive $20, which translates to modern money is like as 50 and 200 respectively. Who do you think, which group was more successful? Who was faster? Who was paid or who was not? Motivated? The ones who paid? Yeah. Okay, you're a manager? You're fired. Actually, external motivation cuts your creativity. And the second group that was paid, they have the prolonged time for solving the task because it required creativity. And when you have an external motivation, it kind of screws you over. And there's a book, Drive, by Daniel Pink, which tells the story about this difference between internal and external motivation and how you actually motivate people so they're engaged in their work, they're creative, they can create solutions, and so on and so on. So I will not like retell you the whole book. I will keep this enjoyment to you for offline. But what I will tell you that you need to have 3 key ingredients in your team for them to be really successful in their work. So they need to have mastery. That means that they need to put their skills at place and actually use what they know and the skills that they have. Then they should have autonomy. So you don't need to micromanage people. Otherwise, they lack this autonomy and they get demotivated. And then they need to have a purpose. Remember the mission that I talked about, right? So they need to understand why they're doing their work in the first place. And not just for the salary. This is a good thing, but that's not enough. They need a bigger goal. Like people are motivated by their purpose. Okay, so I have only 39 seconds left. So in the end, the conclusion. First of all, like understand your business metrics, understand your impact per headcount, understand like how you're running business in general. Okay, when you're focusing on a team, focus on motivated, healthy team. Don't measure the lines of code, right? Measure impact. Ensure that you have some basic technical metrics are in place because they will give you signals if something is going wrong. For example, you can see that the change failure rate is growing up. Then probably there's some problems with motivation in your team. So you will start talking to them and figuring out what's happening and maybe fixing the problem. And the last, of course, optimize your value stream. Make sure that there are no obstacles for the team to do their job so that they know what are they doing, why they're doing, and there's like nothing they have in their way. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vladimir. And now we are going to do the Q&A.
No way.
Yeah, I know you're surprised. Let's start with the easy one. And people, you still have time to add more questions. You know, the hardest questions come in the end usually. So what do we use to measure DORA metrics?
Well, we have a brilliant team that is called Foundation. They come up with all the internal developer experience tooling that we have in Bolt. So they're doing their magic. I don't know what they're doing, but this is like internal stuff that's not like external vendor or whatsoever.
Let's maybe talk about the developer happiness. Do you know the average developer happiness at Bolt?
I don't know the average for the Bolts. Like I know what's happening in my team. Like not in my team, like I have 6 teams that I'm overseeing. So I know some are doing better, some are doing worse. I'm paying special attention to the teams that are not that great in their experience, and I'm addressing particular issue to bring it to the level. Okay?
So there was the kind of, you talked about the teams and goals and so on, but what do you measure and monitor for individual level? Do you measure deployments done per person?
No, we're not doing
failures done per person?
Only for myself? Well, generally, no, we don't do the like individual measurements because it doesn't make sense. Like we perceive the team as like a unit that have the overall goal. So for example, there are like different people with different motivation and with different roles. Okay, so for example, if we're having a tech lead in a team, then probably their responsibility will be to less commit the code, but write more docs, speak more with the people. So yeah, sure, let's measure their Zoom time. No, we obviously don't do that.
I think it's really, it's kind of personal question to you, but let's talk about this. How do you solve the compliance kind of things? Because you explained, it's going down, understandable, there are reasons for that and so on, and that's what you tell to your manager. It's okay, well, the just nature of work changing, but like, what do you do about it? Do you do anything about it?
Yeah, great question, thank you very much. So we do a bunch of things. So first thing we're doing is we're rotating people, okay? So if you see that the person is getting burned out, vacations do not help, the work is still in place, like we're saying, hey, let's do a context switch. So like inside the teams, you can agree with between the engineering managers. You can agree, hey, let's do the swap. So you get a person from a core team with their expertise helping in your field. In exchange, we get a person from your team working on compliance, getting familiar with what's happening in the core and so on. It's actually beneficial because you have like some additional knowledge management, right? And other things are like pretty obvious, like you're trying to give breaks to people, like saying, hey, let's pause it, have a vacation, get some rest, then get back, and so on and so on. So we're working proactively with like how people are doing. We really do about like how people is doing in general, not only work-wise.
So I have a question for me about that then. So if you are then saying that you're doing something to address this like maybe loss of motivation due to compliance, do you expect the number to go up? Do you have this measure as a target? Do you have a target to have like 70 as you're in NPS?
No, we don't have a target. We are watching for the trend. Like if it's going down, then obviously we're doing something wrong or there's something outside that's causing this. But we need to address it. Then we will put some effort on it and see the next quarter if it's going up or we are doing something wrong.
And let's actually, the talk is a lot about teams, right, and measuring team performance, but team is comprised of individuals. Let's talk about this, team is a unit, right, but probably people have different salaries. Then why?
Okay.
I'm not sure what's the question is here. Are salaries different?
Well, salaries are different, and it's obvious why. Because people have different level of competence and different level of impact. We're trying to assign the salary around the level of impact, okay? So it doesn't matter like if you're knowing Kubernetes better than the other person. The question is like if you can apply your skills to bring bigger impact. Like if you don't, it doesn't matter.
And we have like 2 seconds. That's why you have to answer this question really, really fast. Do you think that every person should have a goal set for them to be somewhere in N years?
Depends on the person, of course. I used to have a person who was not here, who was saying to me like,
anymore.
Hey, yeah, I left the company. So, and he was saying literally, this is what he told me, like, hey, my passion is dancing.
That wasn't me.
Yeah. I like what I'm doing. I don't want to like grow bigger. I want to do my job well so I can dance. And I said, perfectly fine with, why not?